Good evening, everyone. Hope you are doing great. Thank you for attending the 11th part of HULATAM webinar series. In this series, we plan to introduce Harrisburg University, the research that is going on in the university, and so on. My name is Stegman. I'm an associate professor of data analytics at Harrisburg University, and I have the honor to be the host of this series. Harrisburg University is a private STEM-focused university in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with an additional location in Philadelphia. HU has more than 30 programs from undergrad to grad to PhD level, and we have 6,000 students who are representing more than 110 countries. HU LATAM, the name that we use for our branch, Harrisburg University at Latin America, currently is offering a Master of Science in Data Analytics, and we're going to start the programs in project management, cybersecurity, and many more other programs, which will be delivered in a hybrid format, which means it's going to be online and on-campus classes that are going to be taught by instructors from Harrisburg University of Science and Technology in the United States. And we are so proud to have our latest location in the City of Knowledge in Panama. The HU Panama location also is going to offer cutting-edge professional development seminars and courses. For the first cohort, we also offer scholarship too. If you have missed our past seminars, the webinars that we have had, feel free to follow the link that you see here, and you can watch all the previously recorded sessions. This session is going to be recorded also, and you have access to it. So without any further talk, let's go to our first presenter, Sa Liu. She is Assistant Professor of Interactive Media Studies. Dr. Sa Liu is an Assistant Professor in an Interactive Media program at Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. She received her PhD in Learning Technologies at University of Texas at Austin in the summer of 2018. She is currently a member of an editorial review board for the Journal of Online Learning Research and the International Journal on E-Learning. She is a big fan of various indoor and outdoor games, including but not limiting to board games, video games, snow skiing, fishing, and hiking. Dr. Liu teaches information design and data visualization, Unreal and Unity game engines, front-end web design and development, and mobile experience design and development at Harrisburg University. Her research interests include educational uses of interactive media, serious games, learning analytics, and interactive media design and development. Dr. Liu, please.
Thank you, Rusba. I'm going to share my screen. That way I can better share the information here. All right, you guys can see it now, right? Just double check that.
Yes, we can see it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So like Rusba said, I teach in Interactive Media program at Harrisburg University. The course I teach include Intro to Computer Programming, front-end web design, game engines, mobile design, and some other technical course students if they wish to take. I have been develop, and research about games for learning for the past 12 years almost. So today in my talk, I want to share about how we in our research team here at Harrisburg University, we created a mobile game to teach about solar system, space science for middle school students. After that, I want to share a little bit about our interactive media program as well, so you can have a better understanding on what we do here and what's the scope of our research and the teaching. So you can see on here, I have a pretty cartoonish graphic here. This is a game we made for the past since 2019. It's called a Space Escape. This is designed by our students and developed by them as well. So This project this is our team. So if you're interested, you can actually go to our university's website. Just put Space Escape in the URL. You can find more information in there. We are currently working on a newer version, but this is our previous teams since 2019 and 2020. So usually we have 2 to 3 faculty members. We lead students in undergraduate and master students. We also have some high school students if they are qualified, so they will intern with us to make the game as well. If you want to learn more about this game, you can also contact us through this URL as well, or using this email address as well. So what is Space Escape? This is about 3 years ago. We were talking about how we can actually using the games for middle school students, because currently students are really like to playing games on their own devices. So basically we come up with this idea is called Space Escape. This is a problem-based learning mobile game, which we hope to provide middle school students an opportunity to learn about space science while practicing their problem-solving skills. So to create this mobile game, at the first year, we had a team of 12 members worked together, including students, faculties. We worked on it for 6 months on the design, development. So I will share a little bit about that in this presentation. So this is the basic story of the Space Escape. You can see this is the storyboard created by our students. This is the login screen. So basically, in Space Escape, the problem students need to solve is to find a young girl named Lucy. We need to find Lucy's location in our solar system. So the students will carry out a rescue mission by playing as Spark. Spark is the pet dog of Lucy, so it's a dog. So the game starts with a opening video, which I will show you in a little bit, to present the problem the player will face in the game. And Lucy is playing with Spark in a park. And an unknown spaceship passed by and abducts Lucy. But the kidnappers, they left a walkie-talkie with Spark for communication. So in the game, while Lucy was trapped in one of those planets, she will be able to send information to the player and tell them some hints on what the planet might be. So for example, Lucy may say, hey, Spark, it is freezing here, or Spark, the gravity here is similar to Earth, or it's covered with craters. So we have about 200 different hints logically designed to represent different planets. So then the players or the students, they can research about the different planets, and by clicking on them, looking at them, and they will have, when they're ready, they will have about 3 times of chance to guess. So when they're ready, they can talk to the dad in the game screen and to decide if they found Lucy in that planet. So this is a problem-solving process for students to learn in the game. This is the video, opening video we have in the game. So it's about 30 seconds. So I'm just going to play here. You can take a look. In the game, we actually have background music. So when the students first open the app, there is some interactive music associated with the app in here. So this is just starting talking about the stories, what's like, what's the problems, what's the issues. So after this game thing, the students will be taken to the login screen, and then we'll be able to learn about the different characteristics of the space, of the planets, and eventually, hopefully, find Lucy. So we are not just, okay, let me go to the next slide. So That's our design process, and for our development process, we actually used GitHub and Unity to create the game. So first version we actually had it on Android Play Store, Google Play Store for a while, but now we have taken it down for now because we have some updates to make. What we found is there are some benefits for using mobile games for students to learn because it's ubiquitous. Students, teachers, parents, they all have it. It's very cheap to buy a smartphone right now. You can, in the US, $100, you can get one that can play this game, or even $50, you get a second-hand one, you can play this game. We actually got a lot of second-hand phone to play test our game, which runs really, really good. I think each of those phones cost $40. So we were able to set up students' profile for us to conduct research because we don't just want to create a game for students to learn about it. We want to improve their learning experience as well. So we actually have some admin profile in the game, so that way we were able to see how students doing in the game and what's their learning process as well. So we put it in the Play Store. It was downloaded about 1,000 times, and we were kind of had a lot user was using it. But there were also some issues when we put it into the mobile game because in the Google Play Store, it's only available on Android device. So people who are using iOS, they were not able to access it. And the players who are downloaded from the App Store, they actually cannot be part of the research as well. We don't have that option for them. So we want to actually collect more player data. So one time our game actually get taken out by Google Play Store without even telling us about it. So it caused some disruption for our testing there. So during our game testing in 2019, we had about 200 students played it. We did a pre-test, post-test, and in 2020, we had more students played with it. 2021, we have some students play it and did a test as well. So in all those 3 years, our data basically shows we both had control group, experiment group. It showed a certain significant improvement in student science knowledge test. If you are interested, we have the paper published in a conference. And so if you're interested, you can go to the Google Scholar and search for my name. It should be in my publication list. You can read more about it if you're interested. So we actually found more interesting things. We found as students, they are actually played this game. If they successfully found Lucy, they will have actually a slightly higher performance compared to students who played this game but did not find Lucy. But that differences were not significant. However, for students who played this game, even though they did not find Lucy's location, but their improvement was still significant higher compared to students who did not play this game. So that's our initial research for the past 2 years. So for the future, currently we are working on transfer it from Android-based game to web-based. That way students have a phone, they have a web browser, they can play it. We also have a summer camp initiative. We bring in students into the team to kind of teach how to make the game and how to design games for educational use and how to research about it. So our research focus right now, we are doing basically the log data in a game, and we are doing pre-test, post-test, retention test with our students, middle school students, and we are trying to understand if their knowledge, the knowledge they learned in the game will be able to transfer to other situations. So this is kind of one of the project we are doing in our interactive media program, which I'm doing with another faculty we are doing here. But I think later on, Dr. Stegman will talk about her games as well. But before that, I want to also talk a little bit about our program. So as you can see, this is the game we are working on for our program, in our program. However, there are some other aspects in our program as well. So interactive media program, we are a 4-year degree program, which we kind of have. I'm more like the technical side in the program, so I do a lot of development with students. But we have other faculties who are working on the artistic aspects, management aspects of the interactive development life cycle. So when we talk about the interactive media part, it includes mobile apps, websites, games, public kiosks, help desk operation, and even broadcast televisions. Currently, we have 3 concentrations. One is called Advanced Media Production, we call it AMP, and User Experience Design, UXD, and Purposeful Game Design. So students who are in these different concentrations, they will be able to focus on specific part of interactive media. This is our course structure in our program. So for all the students in HU, you might have known for almost all the undergraduates in the United States is they need to take 120 credit hours. And for AMED students, interactive media AMED students, they need to take these 73 fundamental courses as college students, and they need to take 27 AMED core course, which including introduction to interactive media, digital design, programming, visual design, management, and studio. And for these different 3 concentrations, you can see we focus on 3 different aspects of interactive media's life cycle. So for advanced media production, these are the doers who are the ones who actually development and make things happen. So these students, if they are a little bit more technical, they will take courses like video production, audio production, web development, 3D modeling, digital photography, or virtual reality, including mixed reality, including augmented reality and virtual reality. For students who like to do more research, so they will research about the user in the interactive media field. They will research about, they will take courses like designs, user research, design perspective, design studio, and interactive information design. For students who are very interested in making games for purposeful games, including educational games or training games, they will be able to actually take a course to design these games. In our program, we also provide, basically it's not just for our program, I think whole university, we have on-campus internship opportunities for students. And for MS students, they are able to intern on our campus to get their internship. I think one of our, actually 2 of our students, 2 or 3 current, we have 3, I believe it's 2, Dr. Stegman can correct me if I were wrong later, is we have actually have 2 students interning with Dr. Stegman in CALT, and we have students intern with all the different centers with the university. So we have a lot of faculties in the program. I'm just one of them here to talk about the research I did for the educational games, but we have lots of other faculties across in both Philadelphia campus and Harrisburg campus. Everybody covers a little bit different aspects of interactive media. So if you are interested, you can reach out to us and to discuss any research opportunities or learning opportunities. I think that concludes my presentation today. I don't know if we have any questions, or Ruzba, shall we wait later for the questions?
Thank you. No, if anybody has any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. While we are waiting for people to type their questions, I see questions are coming on. You also talked about VR. So can I assume that we also offer VR, how to design games based on VR? And then that's a question. Another question is, I hear a lot metaverse and these kind of fancy stuffs. Are we go to that direction too, or not yet?
Okay, that's an interesting question for the second one. So for the first one, yes, in our program we do offer one course, at least one course, is called mixed reality. So in that course, it's usually for advanced media production students. They will actually create a virtual reality. They will work on a virtual reality project with their classmates, create an environment. I'm not the one who is teaching that course, but I've been to that class, so I know what they are doing. For last year, they actually created a virtual reality environment for our the new building we are building right now. HU is having another new building, learning center is being built. So they actually made a 3D model, put it into the virtual reality environment. So people, before the building is actually built, you can put the goggle on and kind of walk around in the new campuses. So that's their project in that classes. So that's what they did. As for your second question, I know there's a lot of buzzword about virtual reality and the metaverse. I think at HU, Dr. Stegman is also on the team as well. Is we have a virtual reality, actually called XR, virtual reality, or augmented reality, or any other reality. We call it XR task force by the HU faculty members. We have about 20 faculty members, 15 to 20 faculty members from different programs. We are thinking about the different applications we can use for virtual reality here. So I think for the last semester, we purchased about 20 different Oculus, Oculus Quest VR headset. So we have VR demos. We will have that at the April here on campus. We have those demos for students. Students can check out those VRs for their own purpose. We actually host the summer camps and trying to develop a new course using virtual reality headset. So I think we are gradually kind of trying to learn more about the technology and to see if there's anything we can apply into education. But I think it's already existing in young children's life. So I think for last year when I was doing virtual reality, the summer camp with students, we took about 20 students in a virtual reality world because it was COVID. So we were not doing it in person. Everybody's in their own home. We met in a place called a rec room where you can play game together, learn together, build a world together with your classmates in a virtual reality. So when we log in there are thousands of other kids there already. So you can see all the other users. They are aging. Their age is from 8 to 20. They are very young. There are lots of them. So I think the newer generation, they are more open to the technology, and the future will be here. We just have to kind of learn how we can actually use it in a productive way for learning and for entertaining as well.
Thank you for complete description. We got multiple questions. First question is, if you could share your contact information, kind of want to be in touch with you. So if you could just type your email address in the chat box, that would be great. Then everybody can have access to your email address. And the next question is saying that, is this type of interface adaptable to other content, or was it designed exclusively for learning about the solar systems?
On the space escape, it is. We have not thought of, that's a great question. So we have not thought about using it for other content yet, because it's very specific designed, has the story for the solar systems, has different interactions with the system. So if you have a subject, I could imagine as if you have a natural world, right? If you want to know about the sea world, if you want to learn about the earth science, you might be able to design a problem for students that you can guide it through in a game for them to do it. our code might be able to reuse for that purpose, but the database structure is, I don't know how much you guys are familiar with the backend. So the database structure will be different. So our game is now designed for all the other subject areas. Currently, it's only focused on space science. Yeah, thank you for your question there.
Thank you for a complete description. Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. Thank you again for the great presentation. And let's move to our second presenter. Our second presenter is Dr. Melanie Stickman. She is an assistant professor and lead developer at CAELT. Dr. Stegman received her PhD in molecular content biochemistry and microbiology in 2004 from the University of Cincinnati. Dr. Stegman used protein and lipid biochemistry to determine the behavior of protein involved in embryonic development and cancer. As a postdoc at Weill Cornell College of Medicine from 2005 to 2008, Dr. Stegman designed a strategy to screen for novel chemical inhibitors of DNA repair in human pathogen tuberculosis mycobacterium. Dr. Stegman started a game studio called Molecular G Games. In 2015, she released Immune Defense, a game based on the research she had done on immune attack. In 2018, Dr. Stegman was recruited to HU to continue her research into innovative technology for education. Her current research interest is ChemSim Game in collaboration with HU faculty, whereas she identifies the fundamental principles required to understand the coursework. She created game mechanics that require the users to manipulate objects in ways that require an understanding of the fundamental principles. In particular, during the game, she assesses players' game performance, translation into real-life understanding, and what is missing between game and real life. So, Dr. Stegman, please. You're muted. You're muted.
Yes. Okay, here we go. I'm not muted and you can see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to skip to the beginning. There's my bio. I made a graphical representation of my bios. So I did biochemistry until 2008. I studied flies. And in 2008, I moved to a think tank, started doing research on a third-person shooter that takes place inside the body. And I did an extensive evaluation of the learning and also confidence gains with the students who played the game compared to their classmates who did not play. And then I designed a new game based on that research, and that new game is Immune Defense. So it's a top-down strategy game, real-time strategy game. Both of these are available at itch.io, and my information's on the last slide. So then when I started my company, I worked at that for a while, taught myself how to code in Unity, and started working here at Harrisburg University. And so what I do at Harrisburg is I'm a professor in interactive media, and I'm also the lead developer, the only person actually in the Center for Advanced Entertainment and Learning Technologies. So I was recruited to help faculty create innovative ways to teach. So what I'm going to tell you about today is one project that I did. And that project is with the chemistry faculty here, Dr. Andrea Nagy and Dr. Richard Jackson. And they had a special request. They wanted help teaching acid-base equilibrium reactions. If any of you have taken freshman chemistry, you know, probably remember the acid-base equilibrium reactions. They're really hard. I remembered them. I have a PhD in biochemistry and I still do not like the acid-base equilibrium. So we formed a group here. These are two students that worked with us. Jameson Burrows was a biochemistry student, and Yasmin Carey was an interactive media student. And Yasmin was interested in animation and modeling, so she had experience with Maya. And Jameson was interested in coding, but he didn't know any yet. So we worked together and coded in Unity together. And then we built something that we could test and see how well it worked. So that's basically what I do. What I want to dive into a little bit is a little bit of how we work. So how do you sit with a scientist and game designers and artists, and how do you come up with a new game? So this is a very deep dive, very detailed explanation of what's going on in our process. And I'm open to, you know, any questions you have. The point is, if you're interested in coding a video game or designing a video game or testing it to see how well it works, we have spots for you. You can intern here, you can do your projects. If you come to interactive media or computer science or education and communication. Okay, so I make video games about science. And the reason I do that is because the average person does not understand science. The average person doesn't know what a virus is, but scientists know what viruses are. Scientists know exactly what viruses are. This is a beautiful picture of all the molecules that are in the SARS virus. DNA, messenger RNA actually in there, and all the proteins on the surface. So we know a lot of detail, but the average person doesn't. So games are a really great way to teach a lot of detail. So what I do is I get a team together. Not just I need software engineers, I need technical artists, but I also need scientists and people who are interested in education. And what we do is we start with everybody talking together and come up with some ideas. The first idea that you need to know is, what are we trying to teach? So that's why we talk to chemistry faculty. And we came up with these 4 steps. This is the summary of our project. Our first step was going to be to develop molecular graphics, because I'll explain it in a second. The second step would be creating a game, but the first thing we needed was graphics to explain. So the chemistry faculty came to me and said, acid and bases are difficult to teach. And we sat down and we talked for hours, and we realized acid and bases is hard to teach because you need to understand 4 different concepts about the molecules before you can predict what an acid or a base will do in water. So in order to do a reaction, you need to know in water, these molecules will behave this way or that way. Will they release a hydrogen? If it releases a hydrogen, that means it's acidic. If it doesn't release a hydrogen, it's not very acidic. And then there's also a gradient of who will release more hydrogens. If 90% of the hydrogens come off, it's not as strong as if 100% of the hydrogens come off. Okay, so when we realized that there are some fundamental concepts about molecules we need to get across, we set about thinking how to present them. And this image right here is just one example of the problem. And here the problem is that you're the chemistry student, you need to learn that this hydrogen is different from that hydrogen. You need to learn that the hydrogen that's attached to this oxygen is different from a hydrogen attached to a carbon. But the problem is that usually we draw them the same way. Both hydrogens are white, plain white, and you, the student, you need to know that they're going to behave differently in water. Okay, so what we decided to do was think, if we were making a game about chemistry, we would draw those 2 molecules differently. If you were going to make a game about guns, if your gun's a rifle and it's going to shoot long distance, you would make it look different from a pistol that shoots shorter distance. You use symbols in games to let players know what the function's going to be. The other thing we wanted to do is let the player discover for themselves. So it needs to look different so that when it acts different, the player can make a correlation between appearance and behavior. So we decided to work on how we present molecules. And Jameson and Yasmin and I, and the chemistry professors too, we worked together for several weeks. First thing, we collected all the different ways other people show molecules, all the different ways that people explain electronegativity and molecular interactions. And then what we decided to do was to color molecules differently based on their electronegativity. So if this hydrogen has given away all of its electrons, we'll make it very deep purple. So it'll be like a 4 over here. And this oxygen has taken all the electrons, means it's very strongly electronegative, and we're going to make that more gold. And so we decided on this color scheme for one reason, because Jameson is colorblind, and he informed us that gold and purple were visible. And so once we had this color scheme, we could draw our molecules in a really different way. We're also preserving molecular orbital shape, and we can talk about that if you have a question about it. But here you can see this is formic acid in the traditional style, and this is formic acid in our new Harrisburg University style. And this hydrogen is weaker purple, and it's attached to something that's white, which is not interactive at all. So carbon is not interactive because it's so white here. And then the oxygens, instead of being red, now they're very gold because they're very electronegative. And here, this hydrogen and this oxygen, we can see this interface is very dark. There's a dark gold color and a dark purple color here. And we're training our students to realize when there's a big, bold difference in color, that that reaction, that interaction, that bond there is less stable. And so this is a more stable, faintly colored, and this is a less stable, brightly colored bond. So what we wanted to explain to our students is what happens when you put a molecule in water. What does it do? And acid and bases do certain things in water, and then salt, sodium chloride, acts differently when you put it in water. And if we can draw our molecules so uniquely that their functions are very noticeable. Okay, and what I'm trying to point out here is that normally schematics are very, very simply drawn. They look more pleasant to look at, but they're not as informative. And if you're trying to train a novice game player or a novice chemistry student, information that they can use is important. Okay, so this is an example of how how we could show like water interacting with an acid. So this here is water that has 3 hydrogens on it, so it's acidic. And this is a regular water molecule. These purple ones are the hydrogens, and the gold is oxygen. And these are extra orbitals. These 2 bumps on the oxygen are extra orbitals. Okay, and then up here, this is a hydroxide molecule. It's oxygen with a hydrogen, and it's is negatively charged, and this is positively charged water with the extra hydrogen. I'm hoping you can see my cursor. I guess that you can. I've clicked on it now. This is the acidic water with an extra hydrogen, and this is basic water with its hydrogen removed. So if we just advance through the slides, come on now, there we go. We can see that the hydrogens can move from one to another, and you can see that the here, this is a much more stable bond. It's more faintly colored, and when the hydrogen comes back on the oxygen, it's dark color again. And then this image here is hydrochloric acid in water, and we see this is a very sharp interaction here. That's an ionic bond, super sharp, and that hydrogen comes off very happily and jumps onto an oxygen, and then it can get passed along. So we want to be able to show these interactions to incoming freshmen and let them see firsthand in sort of a very, very realistic way what the molecules are doing. So this would be formic acid, and we see that when its hydrogen comes off, there's an extra orbital on the oxygen. Now it's got 3 orbitals sticking out, and we've made acidic water. So now that we've come up with our models, we're testing them with students to make sure that the things we think are noticeable to the students. Like, do they notice the difference between the colors? Do they notice all the details? And then the next step we're doing is making a game. So here is a summary of the molecules that we've created. We have different forms of water. This is a covalent interaction, and then these are ionic. So what we came up with was if it's a very strong difference in color, that, like here, that's most reactive species, and this is less likely to react, so it's fainter. We also have blended. If the colors are blended, it's more likely to be a covalent. If it's not blended, it's really sharp, it's ionic. And I think this molecule here, sodium hydroxide, is a really nice example of an ionic interaction here and then covalent on the other side. So the sodium hydroxide, the sodium to oxygen is very ionic, but then this OH is very covalent. Okay, so then we get to the fun part of making a game out of it, and just briefly, this is what we're up to. So what I do when I'm designing a game, I have a chart like this I always start with, and we think of what are our learning objectives. So when you're designing any kind of game, you're trying to teach your player something. They need to learn how to jump over turtles in level 1, so that in level 2, you can give them something else to do. They need to learn how to shoot this gun before they meet this enemy. So there's always a learning objective for every level. And what are you going to do to teach them that level, that thing? So there's a mechanic that you need to create. And then you need to do assessment. Figure out, did they learn it? Do they know what the name of the gun is? Do they know what the name of the molecule is? And so we assess whether they can play the game. We also assess if they know it's chemistry. We can ask them more advanced questions. So this is more game related and becomes more and more as we go over here. Are you learning chemistry? And then can you talk about chemistry after playing the game? Can you come out of the game and then speak to me about chemistries? Have you transferred your knowledge out of the game? So the reason I show you this chart is because we have students who do this part as well. You might not be coding in Unity, but you will be thinking about the education and the communication aspect, the user experience research aspect of video game design and development. And that is, what do my users understand after playing it? Coming up with these questions, finding innovative ways to test it qualitatively or quantitatively. This is part of game development as well. There's careers for this in education. There's also careers for this in game user research. And then one of my favorite next slides is how to make a game mechanic. And in a game mechanic, you need to look around to see what's possible to do. And then you decide, I think this might happen if I do this. And when you click on something or shoot something or run towards something, you get feedback. You do an experiment by doing something, and then you get feedback in it. And so you as a game designer need to make sure your players can do this cycle. See stuff, make a guess, do a test, get feedback. And that's how we sit down with scientists and game designers and game developers together, and we ask the scientist, what should it look like? And it's an iterative loop. We keep going around and around in a group with the scientist to come up with game mechanics. All right, this is an outline for the chemistry game that we're creating. There are molecules in the middle. They're going to bounce around like they do in water. We've got some tasks for the players to manage, molecules they can add to the water, and some readout. How low have you made the pH? I've got lots of crazy stories about trying to make a lot of molecules move around in Unity game engine without crashing a computer. So we could talk about that all day. And that is the end of my talk. And this is me, my contact info. My video game website's got some research papers on it. And thanks for listening. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for the great presentation. Do you have any questions? If anybody has any questions, feel free to type in the chat box.
Yeah, I went really fast through a bunch of big topics.
Oh, that was great. That was great. So a quick question from me. Are the students going to be the end user of these games, or are they in the current program that we have, are they going to be involved in creating the games too?
Yeah, that's a great question. So far, students are involved in making it, and eventually students will be using it. We've tested it with chemistry students. Dr. Najee's class has tested our molecules and given us response. It's great. I mean, Jameson Burrow, the biochemistry student, he did research on how well our chemistry models explained electronegativity and acid properties to his to students 2 years behind him. So he's designing it and we're testing it with students. It's, yeah, eventually we'll have a product that our first year chemistry students will use.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So that's so exciting to see the capabilities that we have.
Yeah, we do. Oh, and we're building it eventually for Oculus Quest. So we should be able to have giant water molecules and giant acids that you can play with. And we're working on that. So, yeah.
So there's a question from audience. Do players require previous skills or competencies to interact with the platform, or is it an intuitive system?
Well, yeah, it's hopefully it will be intuitive. We're going to test it with people who don't know any chemistry yet. And we're actually going to test it with students who have had maybe a couple weeks of chemistry, but they haven't done the acid and bases yet. So that's a good question. Like, who is the target audience? Our main priority are Dr. Najee's students. And she knows what they know and what they don't know. Our second priority would be the public, and they know much less because they're not even interested in chemistry. So our first priority is just what do our students know before they take acid and bases.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. That's a great experience, I believe. Yeah. So I don't see any other question coming in. So, okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking questions. So this concludes our discussion. Thank you again, both speakers, Dr. Saliu, Dr. Melanie Stickman. That was a great presentation. I'm sure that the audience enjoyed too. Special thanks to audience for taking time and listening to our presentation, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I also should thank Dr. Kevin Huggins. He is the rector of HULATAM program. He was here too today. If you like this session, remember that we are going to have monthly sessions. Our next month presentation will be about managing on the edge of chaos. I have copied the link for registration in the chat box in case you want to register for the next upcoming one, which is in April. Thank you again for everyone for attending tonight's session, and hope to see you again in our future session. Thank you, everyone, and good night.